Hello, my name is Nina. I'm wearing my beaver onesie and we can pretend that it's because it's Halloween rather than the truth, which is that I wear this practically every day and I don't mind. Today I am here to film my October wrap-up. I'm super excited. I read 15 books this month, which is really good for me, and I am just really excited to talk to you about them. First, we're gonna check in on my TBR for the month of October. I had 6 books on my TBR and I read 4 of them. The 2 that I missed are Warm Bodies by Isaac Marion and Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. Love and Other Words was due at the library, so I had to return that. And this one, I don't have a good excuse. I had the audiobook of this even, but because I'm watching it for another video, it just wasn't the time to read it right at the end of the month. So this is going to be added to my November TBR, hopefully, fingers crossed. Before we get started, I thought I'd share a few stats with you about my reading for the month of October. I read 8 audiobooks, 2 physical books, and 5 graphic novels, comics, manga, poetry, and novellas. That, short book area, so that's really good. I don't usually read that many novels in a month, and even though most of them were audiobooks, I still think I did really well. I'm really proud of myself. Of those books, I read 1 5-star, 7 4-stars, 3 3-stars, 1 2-star, and no 1-stars. Usually I have quite a few 2-stars in a month, and so I'm really excited about that. Not a ton of 5-stars, obviously I only read 1, but I did read 1 and it was excellent. So let's get started. I'm going to talk about these in the order that I read them. So the first book that I read was actually a book I read for school, and that is Neighbors by Jan Gross. This is a nonfiction account of a community in Poland called Jedwabne, the Jedwabne Jews. Yeah, so essentially in this community, the Poles and Jews were living in community with one another until eventually there was a breaking point and the Polish people were hurting and killing their Jewish neighbors. It was really heartbreaking. I had to write a paper about it, but this was quite interesting. I gave it 3 stars. It was fairly easy to read and pretty quick and very informative and thought-provoking in terms of what might happen, like these were literally their neighbors, and just like that, under times of distress and the Holocaust, just things went crazy. So I recommend this if you're interested in reading books about World War II, because this is definitely a different perspective that not a lot of people talk about. The next book that I read was an audiobook, and that is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I love this. I rated this 4 stars. By the way, Neighbors was 3 stars, but I rated Lock Every Door 4 stars. I might bump it up to 5. I honestly have no idea. I just can't stop thinking about it. It was creepy. I was on the edge of my seat, like trying to figure out what was going on the whole time. I didn't guess anything. The ending was kind of lackluster, which is why I lowered it down to a 4, but it was still very, very good. Essentially, if you don't know, this book is about a girl who applies for a job apartment sitting this place, and she thinks it's this amazing opportunity. There's lots of money involved and she needs it because she has been living on her friend's couch for the past little while. So she takes this job, but there's a bunch of weird rules surrounding it. Like, she can't have anybody over, she can't spend a night out of the apartment, and it's just kind of weird. And then weird things start happening and people go missing, and it's just wonderful. So definitely read this if you like thrillers. Next, I read A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. I had high hopes for this one, but this is unfortunately my 2-star read of the month. It was just really meh. I am finding that as I get older, I'm finding it more hard to enjoy books that are set in high schools. This one is about a modern day Sherlock Holmes and a modern day Watson, and they're solving crimes together, but they're both in high school. The modern day Sherlock Holmes and the modern day Watson are descendants of Sherlock Holmes and Watson, but I really had to suspend my disbelief because the Sherlock character was literally exactly like Sherlock, down to violin and drugs and just everything about her was the same. Same with Watson, everything was the same. And I felt like at that point, it's either should be a retelling and they're not descendants because, you know, no, you're not the same as your ancestors, you know? I had a hard time suspending my disbelief. The mystery wasn't that memorable. I don't even remember what it was, and I'm pretty sure I guessed the ending anyways. It was okay. I don't think I'll be continuing on with the series. I'm just not interested. A lot of people really like this, so I'm definitely the unpopular opinion if this sounds interesting to you. And also if you liked Truly Devious, I think you'll really like this one, but it just wasn't the book for me. Then I listened to The Girl in 6E by A.R. Torr. This is a book about a cam girl who has the urge to murder people. So she locks herself in her apartment and she hasn't been out of there for years. And essentially things happen. There's a murder. I don't want to say too much. It's definitely not for younger readers, and you have to sort of go in expecting a little bit of graphic content, but I enjoyed it. Some of it did make me feel kind of icky. I didn't enjoy listening to a lot of the erotic scenes. It made me feel uncomfortable, and it was kind of gross to me. But I really enjoyed the mystery aspect of it. It was a really great thriller. I think I rated it 4 stars. I gave it 3 stars. Well, I liked it. It wasn't my favorite thriller or anything, but I enjoyed it and I'm glad I read it. Probably won't continue on with the series, but I recommend it if you like sexy books and thrillers. The next book that I've read is Technically You Started It by Lana Wood Johnson. It took me a really long time to read this. I started this in August, and it's told completely in text messages, so you'd think it'd go by fast, but my friends made fun of me for reading this one day, and like that's the most ridiculous reason, but I do think that somewhere in my brain it was like, wow, you're so dumb for reading that book, why are you reading it? And then I stopped reading it, so I'm not blaming them. I'm just like, this is so stupid. That's how my brain works. But I actually did end up really enjoying this. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. It's definitely objectively not the best book ever. It's about this girl who gets a text from a guy named Martin Nathaniel Monroe II, and coincidentally it explains in the book, but there's 2 of those at her school, and one of them she really hates and one of them she's like indifferent to, and she thinks that she's texting the one that she is indifferent to, that she doesn't really care about, but it's actually the guy that she hates. And so it's sort of about their romance and just getting to know someone without any preconceptions about them. It was cute. It was quick to read. I definitely recommend this if you like just romances in general and want something a little bit different and quick. I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. The next book that I read is Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. Oh my goodness. I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really, really liked it. It took me a little bit while to get into it, which is why I couldn't give it quite the full 5 stars, but I do believe that the next few books in the series will be some of my favorites of all time. If you don't know what this is about a school that takes in children who have had experiences going through these doors. They experience other worlds and they come back and they're often quite devastated about being back in the real world, so they're sent to this school to sort of cope with that and meet other kids who have had the same experiences. I didn't know that this was a mystery, and I loved it. It was perfect. I read it for Spookathon coincidentally, and it was amazing. I'm not going to tell you anything more because it is a short novella, but I really, really enjoyed this. If you have slept on the series like me, you definitely need to get around to it because it's absolutely incredible. Then I listened to City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. I loved this book too. I gave it 4 stars because it is a middle grade, and I feel like because of that it is written down a little bit. Not to, like, I would have loved this book as a kid, but as an adult reading it I couldn't give it that full 5 stars, probably for that reason alone. But this was creepy. It was the perfect mix of like spooky and really endearing. It's set in Edinburgh and I loved the setting, and it reminded me of BuzzFeed Unsolved's Ryan and Shane as her parents, and it was just incredible. I really liked it. It was just a fun middle grade. I'm really excited to read Tunnel of Bones Definitely recommend this if you haven't read this one yet as well. I gave it 4 stars. Then I read To Make Monsters Out of Girls by Amanda Lovelace. It's like a feminist poetry collection like most of what Amanda Lovelace writes. It's really incredible. I ended up only giving this 3 stars though, unfortunately. I think there's just times in my life where poetry is really touching and makes me think, and this was just not one of those moments in my life. I think that a lot of people will like this and really connect to it, but for me it was just kind of okay. The poetry itself objectively is absolutely incredible, so if you like poetry and have enjoyed her works in the past, I definitely think you should pick this up. But yeah, it wasn't a 5 star, wasn't a 2 star, like it was good. It was good, just not, it could have been better I think if I had read it at a different time when it would have been more meaningful to me. Then I read Stargazing by Jen Wang. So I lied. There are 2 5-star books on this list, and one of them is Stargazing by Jen Wang. This is probably my favorite, one of my favorite graphic novels of the year. It was so sweet. It was very diverse. This was the book for my diverse representation prompt in my TBR, and it was great. It was great. It just sort of talked about her life as a Chinese American child, and she becomes friends with this Buddhist family, and then things happen and it's sad. Like I almost cried. Oh. I've read all of Jen Wang's other graphic novels and none of them compared to this one. I'm definitely going to be reading everything from her in the future because this was amazing. Read it. Read it, read it, read it, read it, read it, read it, read it. So good. 5 stars. Then I read The House at the Bottom of the Lake by Josh Malerman. This was a 4-star book for me, which was surprising because I went into it, writing style was kind of weird, and same with Bird Box, which is also by him. Didn't like the writing style a ton, but this was just a short novella, and I think because of that it was way easier for me to get through it and get into it, and it just worked with the overall whimsicalness and plot of the story because it's literally about a house at a bottom of a lake. The bottom of a lake. I don't know. I always mess up that title. I apologize. But there's creepy things going on, and it's a romance between these 2 characters, kind of, and it was great. I think that if the writing style had been a little bit more my taste, and if it had been easier to get into, this would have been a 5-star book because it was just, wow. I didn't explain what Stargazing was. It's fine. Basically, this book is about a young couple who are going on their first date. They are going canoeing on his uncle's lake, I think. It's his uncle's, I don't know. But they find this house that is at the bottom of the lake and they go and explore it, and it's spooky and it brings them together, and it's just great. Definitely give it a try. It's not going to be for everyone, but at least try it. It's only 100 pages or so worth it. Then I read The Tea Dragon Festival by Katie O'Neill. I read The Tea Dragon Society a couple months ago in August, I believe, and I loved it. And I was so excited for this one. If you saw my TBR, I was just gushing about how excited I was, but unfortunately, I just did not like this one as much. I wanted to see more of the dragons, and we just didn't get that, and it wasn't as, I don't know, sweet. There were some nice commentaries about gender and stuff like that, but I didn't fall in love with this one like I fell in love with the other one. It still has a great art style, it's still cute, but it just wasn't the big, like, wow, this is amazing, like I felt with the first one in this series. So I gave this one 3 stars. I still recommend this series, it's really great, and I think most people like the second one better than I do, but just wasn't my thing. Then I listened to Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. This is a classic and this has been on my shelf for forever, so I'm really glad I finally picked this up. I ended up giving this book 3 stars though, and let me tell you why. This book is about a woman who goes missing, and her husband is sort of, you know, accused of murdering her because that's just what happens. And it follows 2 perspectives of the woman from before and leading up to her disappearance, as well as the husband from the disappearance onwards. And there was one pretty wild plot twist that I was freaking out over in my Spookthon vlogs. If you haven't watched those, you can go and see my live reaction, I think on day 5. But this was just maybe day 4, I don't know. But it took me a really long time to get into this. I was kind of bored at the beginning, and the ending was just not, like, I did not care. There was one plot twist, and then the ending was just kind of meh. It was fine. I'm glad I finally read it, but it wasn't what I was expecting it to be. It wasn't like the greatest thriller of all time by any means. I'm definitely going to be picking up more of her books, especially because their other ones are shorter. But yeah, just kind of okay. I watched the movie as well with my boyfriend after. I meant to put that in the vlogs, but I totally forgot. And the movie was good as well. It went on for way too long. It was like a 3-hour movie, or like, not 3 hours. It was like at least 2.5 though, and it went on for way too long. Kind of like I felt about this book, to be honest. It was just kind of boring in parts, really intense in others. I don't know. Anyways, I read this. 3 stars. We have 3 more. The next one is The Chalkman by CJ Tudor. This is another book I listened to on audio. It's another thriller. It's about a boy. It's told in dual perspectives. Once from him, he's 12 years old in the 80s, and then in present day it's 2016. And it's about just these creepy chalk drawings that show up among murdered people and stuff. And there's this creepy teacher, and there's just, it's just like, I liked the vibe of this book a lot. I liked the 80s setting especially. It was really, really cool. I just found this wasn't the best book to read by audio. I think I would have really liked reading it physically, but there's 2 Nickies. I think. I'm still so confused, but I just spent the whole time trying to figure out who's who. There's a huge cast of characters, and because they're children, they also have parents that are attached to them, and their parents play a big role in the story as well. And it's just hard it was hard for me to differentiate who is who in my head as I listened. So that's my only complaint about this book, but it did lower my rating to a 3-star. I think I would have liked it better, as I said, if I read it physically, because it would have been easier to keep things straight in my head, but it is what it is. Then we have my favorite book of the month that I can't stop thinking about it, and Courtney Summers retweeted my tweet about it and responded to me, and I'm just, oh my gosh. The book is Sadie by Courtney Summers, and oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. I listened to the audiobook in one day, and it was incredible. I'm gonna cry thinking about it, not because like of course it's sad, but it didn't go to make me cry. I'm just crying almost now because it was just such a great book, and I'm so happy that I read it. It was great. It's about a girl named Sadie who goes missing, who runs away, and her grandma hires this podcast guy to go and find her and find out what happened to her. And it's in dual narrative of Sadie when she's, you know, on her road trip, when she's gone, and the podcast. And it's just like, oh, it's amazing. Go read it. Definitely read the audiobook if you have the chance. I think it's one of the best. I think it might be the best audiobook I've ever read. Everybody says that, but like, it truly, truly is. So go read it. It's amazing. I can't stop thinking about it. It's 5 stars. 5 stars, obviously. And then the last book that I've listened to was The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. Gave this book 3 stars. It's another thriller that was just kind of like fine. There's a few plot twists in here, but I was just kind of bored the whole time. It was interesting enough to keep me reading. I did like it, but it wasn't thrilling enough for me to give it anything more than a 3, you know? It's basically about a woman whose ex-husband is getting married to his new girlfriend, and you just don't know anything, and you have to sort of figure out why this woman is so upset, if it's just from jealousy or other reasons or whatever, what's sort of wrong with the situation. It's interesting. I liked the epilogue, actually. The epilogue was probably the best part. One of the best like plot twists of it, because I kind of guessed the other ones. It was fine. It was good. But I don't know. It's definitely not the best thriller I've ever read, and that's kind of disappointing because I was expecting it to be better, but oh well. Anyways, those are the books I read in October. I'm gonna go carve pumpkins and stuff now. I'm excited for the day. I'm not actually going as a beaver, I'm going as a dinosaur, and I'm just really excited. But thanks guys for watching. I will see you tomorrow with my November TBR chosen by my dartboard again, so you better be here for that. Okay, bye. Happy reading.